change my mind. Baby, thought you changed my mind. Baby, thought you changed my mind.
Welcome back, Pod-A-Holics, episode 3 with Nick Maddie. Today, definitely excited to bring you guys a couple of tips for your, learning experience here with Pod-A-Holics. The season has definitely kicked off in the sense of tech and learning a little bit more about skill sets that can be transferred over or skill sets that you may already have and also are looking to improve upon. Today's a good episode, I think, because Nick Maddie here, I've known him for a couple years now from the online space in the fitness world. And him and I have been talking about a few things that I think will be good for some of you who I know listen to this and are looking to dive into new careers. So today, I think that the information or kind of the talk will give you some kind of push forward into learning more, excelling more, and whatnot. But again, Pod-A-Holics episode 3 today is about transferable skills, and I have Nick Maddie here with me to introduce real quick, and Nick Maddie can kind of take it over after. Nick is in the fitness space. He is an online fitness business owner. Nick, fun fact, is also jumping into consulting other fitness businesses in the space as well. Me leaving the space, I was thankful enough that Nick Maddie was wanting to do something like that, so I passed him along. My last client in OMG, and they are killing it already. They love Nick, I already know. I talk to that business owner specifically all the time. But this is Nick Maddie. Nick, if you want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit, a quick little maybe 60-second of how long you've been doing the fitness stuff, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for having me on, my man. I know we go back a bit and appreciate all the mentorship and guidance that you've given me and our company. So yeah, I've been in the space for about 3.5 years, coming up on 4 years. Started I had never had a client whatsoever before that. I was a nurse previously in surgery, then got into fitness and helped mostly medical professionals with fat loss goals. And that's kind of the background, going into some other projects and things like Kevin said now. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. That's a very interesting thing. Like, I haven't really talked to you about it specifically, and I really haven't talked to anybody about it, but there seems to be like an ongoing thing of like nurses jumping into fitness. Why is that? What is do you have a reason for it? Can you share a reason for it? Or is that just kind of like the thing and you just have no blanket reason for it?
Yeah, I think a lot of them, they see kind of the examples of maybe not taking care of your health to the fullest extent with patients. And they're like, that kind of scares you a little bit. You're like, man, I don't know if I want to end up in that place. And I want to take care of myself. And then that can oftentimes ripple effect into want to helping others. So I think it's just seeing the nightmare, so to speak, of what happens if you don't take care of your health leads them into want to be a bit more proactive about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously being in a hospital is a lot of it is like post-care, like after the problems happen.
Yep.
Versus fitness is pre-care, right? And
yep.
Sometimes the pre can be harder than the post just because of a mindset standpoint, you know. Some people have huge barriers on that side of things as well. So now you're in your fitness business. And this is kind of going to feed into the topic of the day. You're in your fitness business, and you and I have been talking, specifically, I left the fitness space. I don't know how much you remember about like my path in that, but I'm 30 now. I opened up a small gym when I was 20 years old and have been in it for like 10 years. I've done the in-person stuff. I've done the online stuff. I even lost, I don't know if you remember me telling you, I even lost the bid to that one building where I wanted to build Be Fit as a big building.
I didn't even know you had a gym in the past, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I was 20 years old. I had like $8,000 to my name, and I got my CrossFit L1 2014 and drove down to CrossFit Mayhem. If you're familiar with like Rich Froning and all of
Yeah.
Okay. So drove down to CrossFit Mayhem. Huge, crazy story. My car broke down on the way there. 30-second spiel. Car broke down on the way there. It was raining in the middle of the night. Some random police officer picked me up, and he said that his cousins repaired cars. I left my car with his cousins, complete strangers, an hour away. They drove me to CrossFit Mayhem to Cookeville, Tennessee, and then the next day they brought me my car, and I paid them $130 because they fixed it.
Wow, that is
Bro,
crazy.
at 11 o'clock at night, I'm telling you, it's crazy, crazy. And then of course, the guys at CrossFit Mayhem had me share the story. But anyways,
Wow.
dove into that. Fast forward a couple years ago, we were making a bid for, you know what a Big Lots is, like the like it's like a chain of like furniture stores and things like that that you can kind of
I don't think
no.
so, actually.
Okay, so
Yeah.
think of a furniture store. We made a bid on a building and we lost it. The city of
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis was doing a lot of renovations around this new jailhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and the building that I wanted was also getting bid by an organization that wanted to do meth rehabilitation center. So
Mm.
I lost it to the meth rehabilitation center, so I don't have the gym. But anyways,
Okay.
so specifically, I've been in the space, but I'm out of it now, primarily because I didn't see much more growth for me specifically. Now, dude, don't get me wrong. You know this as well. Some guys in our industry make 200,000, 300,000 on a monthly basis in the fitness space, either by
Yep.
coaching or doing consulting. But for me personally, mentally and just passion wise, I just was kind of exhausted of it. So I looked for
Mm.
an outlet, and it's been about a year and a half of me looking into tech, and I followed a guy named Cyrus, and Cyrus was uh, really talking about sales engineering and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw myself in this space
Mm-hmm.
much better growing older.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, you kind of have something similar going on, but what we haven't talked about is like how much your passion is still in fitness, and or if it isn't anymore, what is your kind of future look like in your head right now, and how you want to either get out of it or at least be kind of in and out of the two and in the new field that you're also looking into.
Yeah, I would say like I went into fitness. It wasn't necessarily because I do like it and I am passionate about it, but it's not really how I primarily make decisions on if it's something I love. It's more so like, will this produce the outcome that I'm looking for? And I found
Mm,
that surpassed my medical field uh, income and control of my time very quickly, and so that went great for a while, and it's still going well. But I guess I'm seeing other ways that I could leverage my skill sets to sort of uh, take it to another level, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And to me, the fulfillment comes in the results of what I do and what that provides, the income and the time that I can do whatever I want rather than the thing itself. So I'm willing to do other things, even if it isn't like what I love to do, if it produces that sort of result.
Yeah.
But I like fitness still, and I still enjoy the impact, but I want to be able to leverage my time and skills in the best way, if that makes
and
sense.
and I want to be open to, and we won't share necessarily specifics just because it doesn't completely matter. Nick Matty is a six-figure guy.
Yep.
The business does do well. So when we're talking a lot about this, I know that a new audience that listens to this, because I know that some people that I met through Careerist, which was the boot camp that I took for my sales engineering, aren't too familiar with the fitness space. And sometimes when we look at fitness coaches, we look at them as like they're kind of having trouble paying their bills. They don't really
Mm-hmm.
know where the next kind of thing is coming from, and typically, on average, every fitness coach that is in the kind of normal crowd is struggling. But that's not the case for
Yeah.
you. So just for fact purposes here, Nick Matty is a six-figure earner, and obviously we're talking about even more so than what he's making already. But to kind of expand on what you were saying is like these skill sets that you need to develop, and then of course think of like the future pacing of your life, not only financially but maybe also passion wise. Transferable skills by definition, and this is, I'm not reading it off of anything here. This is more so like what I have picked up just by conversation. Transferable skills are things that you can pick up in one space and are easily used or utilized in other spaces as well. So for example, being very open and transparent as a salesperson is a transferable skill that you can have in almost anything. What I mean by open and transparent is when somebody asks you a question, you're not deviating those questions, you're not answering questions with other questions, and you're really good at active listening and pausing, and then, of course, following through with a good answer for the questions that you're asked.
Yep.
Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be about sales that we talk about, but what is the importance behind transferable skills with the fact that there are so many things that you can do. I mean, you specifically have been talking about the insurance space, and you can expand on that a little bit more. I'm in
Mhm.
the tech space. Some other people sell cars, and they're managers in the car dealer space, right? We know a few people in the real estate space. All of these things, and what's funny about it is that I know a lot of those guys, and we can think of a few together that are coming from the same niche, but yet are branching out into different things. Not
Yep.
all of us are taking different boot camps or anything like that, but I think that all of us have these transferable skills. What is the
Mhm.
importance behind making sure that whatever you're in right now, that you are paying attention to the skill sets that you're learning, so that way, if one day it ends, that you can move on to something else.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And I'll just give you an example here of kind of how the skills that I've acquired and what, leading up to where I'm at now have sort of like helped me level up. So when I was in high school, I tore my ACL a bunch of times, twice actually. Was going to be in sports, right? Couldn't do it. Through that rehab, I learned delayed gratification, grit, being willing to put work in and not see a result right away, right? That transferred into my first business, which was even before fitness, which was kind of in the direct selling sort of network marketing area. And I learned people skills and how to talk to someone and how to interact with customers and all that sort of thing. And then once I got into that, and that business was a grind. It didn't go as well as I wanted it to, but I learned a lot. And then I got into fitness, and it blew up very quickly. I think
Yeah.
within 6 months, we were making 10 grand a month with no clients whatsoever. Don't even know what a client is. You know what I mean? And that's not because I wasn't made. That's because of the skills that were acquired during those other seasons where maybe
Yep.
I wasn't making as much as I wanted to make during that
Mm-hmm.
time, but I was making something, and it was skill sets. So a lot of times I think people are in sort of seasons where they're not seeing the external result of what they're wanting to see in terms of dollar signs or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
if you can sort of like reflect on what is this teaching me, and those skills can compound, and you find the thing that is going to allow you to level up, skills are there. I mean, you'll take off really quickly.
Yeah. 1,000%. 1,000. You mentioned obviously the injuries and things like that, and what's interesting is that I feel like a lot of high level people always have good stories from a younger age, and so it is a testament
Yeah.
to, you don't develop these things later on always. It usually comes early on, which is why, like, for me
Mm-hmm.
as a dad, to kind of deviate a little bit, I always look at my
Yeah.
kids like, I got a 9-year old now, I got a 2-year
Yep.
old, and I have another one on the way. And I'm just like, man, I got to make sure that everything I'm instilling in my kid's life right now is has a major impact, because some of the things as an adult can be harder to learn, and then maybe the first 15 years of your life is just kind of like blah. But how do you as an adult recognize more skills that aren't always like an injury when you're a teenager, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I both know, specifically in the fitness space, that a lot of adults are coming in and they're looking to learn about transferable skills, or looking to develop
Yeah.
some kind of footprint in whatever it is that they're doing, specifically in the fitness space, from our time together, right? But how do you develop those skills, or how do you recognize those skills as an adult, do you think?
I think you have to really reflect on the situation that you're in, because it's really easy to get frustrated and not even think about that and think of it, the season that you're in, as a waste of time.
Yeah.
And there's just no progress going on and this and that. So I guess I don't know exactly how you recognize it, but if you pause and reflect and really ask, what is this sort of hard time teaching me, if you're going through that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you'll kind of recognize it during that time. Sometimes it's later on where you look back and you're like, wow, this is what skill I acquired during that season of my life that's now really helping me level up in this kind of where I'm at right now. So I think it takes like you're either winning or you're learning something, right?
One
And the more you have that
100%.
mindset, the more you're going to kind of help with recognizing it.
Everything is either a tick forward or a tick back. Like,
Yep.
for example, I was talking to a young family member, and he was thinking about buying a charger, right? Like a car.
Yeah.
And he's 19, and he's, in the military and whatnot. And I asked him why he wanted to buy. He told me the story about why he wanted to buy the car. And I'm like, look, man, everything is either a tick forward or a tick back. And at the
Yeah.
time, it was like a family gathering, and I was having a beer. I'm like, even me having this beer right now is a tick backwards, right? How many of these tick backwards do I want tonight? Probably only one.
Yeah.
But everything is either one of those two, right? And when you have to reflect on life as an adult, I think that we should look at those things like every little action matters. It's either a win or a loss.
Mm-hmm.
There is no neutrality to the things that you do right now. For example, some people can consider this a tick backwards. Some people can consider this a tick forward. I think that for
Mm-hmm.
us, it's a tick forward because we're sharing kind of history and things like that, and
Yep.
we're also trying to you know, help others progress in whatever. But we can also look at it like a tick backwards and like we should be focusing potentially on other things right now. Who knows, right? But the thing
Yep.
is, as younger adults, we have kind of like that space to chill. We don't have as much responsibility as we do as adults.
Mm-hmm.
So we may have not sat there at 18, 17, or maybe even 19, 20, 21 thinking this is our time to reflect. We just had kind of like that bandwidth. So as
Yep.
adults, it's even more important to reflect. So
Mm-hmm.
that way you are understanding even more what you're going through rather than just kind of maybe getting angry at life or quickly wanting to switch and get kind of like this like shiny object syndrome sort of
Yep.
thing that people go through because they don't want to reflect because they think they're too stressed out, so therefore they want to move on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the skills that are transferable are overlooked heavily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't take time to reflect. So I guess for what you think and just kind of what you've shared already, what are some commonly overlooked skills that are highly transferable from where you're at right now and maybe just your kind of world or what you think other people can kind of experience or look at as well? What are some commonly overlooked skills that you think can be transferred in any industry when you reflect as an adult?
Yeah, I think there's several, and I think too. Usually, the thing that I found is the skill that I'm learning in the season is the thing that feels very, very hard in the season that I'm in. So, if selling is really, really hard, it's making me better. If the economy is down, it's hard for fitness coaches, right? Harder right now than it was 2 years ago, for sure. But if you can learn kind of how to sell right now and how to communicate effectively and help people kind of uncover their problems, then when the economy's better, you're going to kill it. And so usually it's the thing that feels like a grind. This is really hard. Like I'm not good at this. I feel like I'm keep failing at this is like, if you're looking for what is the skill that you should be learning, that's probably where it's at, wherever
Yeah.
on your journey. So I think selling is a huge one. That's kind of what leads me into my next thing that I'm looking into, sort of leadership. If you have a team, right, and being able to, like, you're not the only one that you're taking care of. You're taking care of other people. You're learning how to manage and lead and encourage people and develop them into the person that they need to be to get to where they want to go. Managing your time, how to be efficient with your time, a lot of those types of things. Delayed gratification, in business, patience, a lot of business owners right now need that. I think it's not necessarily a time for most people I talk to where they're just like growing exponentially, so it's learning how to be patient during the time and hone in on the things that you can actually control during the season, taking care of my clients, making sure the people that are actually in my company are taken care of instead of always on acquisition. So I think sales, leadership, time management, leadership, those are some of the main ones I think that stick out to me that
Yeah.
are skills to learn.
The one thing that resonates with me the most is patience. I think that the patience one is the hardest one.
Yep.
And a lot of people, specifically for me, I have seen a lot of people in my life do really, really well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you see other people kind of in their glory, and you're like, man, I want that, right? Like I want to get
Mm-hmm.
there. And one thing that I've always worked hard on is the patience side of things. What would you
Mm-hmm.
say is a good strategy for developing patience that will then help you in other career paths for those who are listening? Because what's interesting is that specifically people on my LinkedIn listen to this, and I have probably 1,000 coaches on my LinkedIn in the fitness space right now, and a few
Mm-hmm.
fitness coaches have messaged me that I've never talked to before and have said it's very interesting that you're switching over to tech. It's very
Yeah.
interesting that you're moving away from fitness. And I think that fitness coaches do struggle with patience because of how social media
Yeah.
is right now. Um, but what do you think is a good strategy to develop that patience that then will lead to better like headspace to learn how to become a better sales leader?
Yeah. I think especially if you got into fitness in the last 5 years, it's easy to be very impatient because if you got into it like 3 years ago, it was very,
Mhm.
not easy, but all pretty easy to start making money pretty quickly
Mhm.
without any experience with it. And if you got into it right now, it's not that way.
Mhm.
So I think the more you can sort of like, here's what helps me is like having a longer time horizon and how I'm thinking about, my goals. And rather than thinking I have to be here, in this next month or 3 months from now, like where do I want to be in 5 or 10 years from now, and kind of have the macro goal. But then you have, micro patients each day
Mhm.
where I'm executing on, the things that I can control. So for me, it's zooming out the time horizon because I'm still going to be on this entrepreneur grind in 5, 10 years from now. It's not like if this doesn't work out for me, then I'm going to go back to having a job the rest of my
Yeah.
life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, that's sort of something that helps me is switching my perspective on how I'm looking at it, I guess.
The zooming out is huge. You know, so I'm 30 now, and I feel like I hear more than ever the whole "I'm old." Not specifically
Mm-hmm.
to me. I'm just saying like, you're getting older, so of course your audience and your crowd around you is typically around the same age, and I just hear so many things like I'm old, I'm getting old, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
I'm hurting here, I'm hurting there, and most of the time it comes off as kind of like a joke, but then it typically, the more jokes you say, the more reality sets in, or the more that
Mm-hmm.
joke turns into a reality
Yeah.
unconsciously, right? And not by fault. But the big thing is like a lot of people tend to have this reality that at a certain age life kind of ends or you can't do more. It's like the whole can't teach an old dog new tricks. But
Yeah.
I think that what's helped me out a whole lot for me is envisioning myself as a guy that's not going to hit his prime until he's 40.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I
Yeah.
look at it like that, where some other people are like, man, your prime is really in your 20s or mid 20s and whatnot. It's kind of like the has been, the jokes that people make about has beens, like
Mm-hmm.
people who peak in high school, people who peak in
Yeah.
college. But I've never looked at it that way. I've always looked at it like, okay, um, I didn't earn six figures till I was 26. That was my
Mm-hmm.
turning point year for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I had maybe made 50, $40,000 before, but 4 years ago
Mm-hmm.
is when I really hit like a good cadence. And from there, it set even more where I was like, okay, yeah, my 30s are definitely going to be much better.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like when I was talking to the family member of mine, he's 19 and he's like already rushing things. And he's like, I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like I'm rushing
Yeah.
these things. So what you said was looking at it in the macro lens. I think that more people need that. And maybe some people make jokes of like, you're getting older at 30. Some
Yeah.
others just say it to themselves, but more seriously. And it's not a joke like, I'm 30, I'm old, I can't do anything more. But in
Yeah.
reality, there's so much more. I'm not saying that everybody's going to be like Colonel Sanders and opens up a
Yeah.
KFC at 60. What
Yeah.
was it, 62 or 72, right?
He was old as hell.
He was
Yeah.
old as hell. And then it
Yeah.
finally hit. I'm not going to bring you guys some kind of Gary V motivation here today of like, you can do it whenever. Not everybody
Yeah.
hits it like that.
Yeah.
But I think that if we look at it in a more patient standpoint, to where if you're struggling at 31, you could still make it at 35. There are so many things that could switch for you
Yeah.
if you look at it like that. But if you're like looking at it only to the next month basis, yeah, it can be hard. Think of it like fitness coaches. Like how
Mm-hmm.
many people join in on uh like a mentorship or something, and then they're frustrated after
Yeah.
30 days or 60 days because they didn't make 10K like some other coaches did, right?
Yeah.
And they're not looking at it like a large platform, and they're looking
Yep.
at it like, oh, that other person hit in like 30 days, it should happen to me too, right? And then they start blaming
Yeah.
other things and whatnot. So anyways,
Yeah.
I think
Another thing is having someone that can point out sort of ways that you are winning that you don't realize it. Very similar to fitness clients, to where they maybe only look at the scale, but they're winning in all these other areas with their inches and energy and digestion and all these other things. And it's pretty easy to get caught as a business owner in like, I'm only looking at my revenue or my collected amount that month or whatever. And, having coaches that can kind of say like, hey, here's the skills that you're acquiring right now that you maybe don't even think about.
Yeah.
You know,
A mentor.
and
A
yep,
mentor is huge.
yep,
I tell people all the time, if you got $5,000, go spend it on a mentor, but don't expect anything back yet.
yep,
Something
yep.
else will come. I've spent since 2020 till now, I've spent maybe over 55,000 in mentorships.
Same.
Almost like school, so it's like,
Yep.
um my bless my mom and everything, but my mom always shits on me a little bit. She's like, I wish you would have gotten a college degree. But I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, if you were to look at all this stuff I've spent, it's kind of the same thing, like I don't have like necessarily like a plaque on the wall,
Yeah.
but there are some things that I learned that are transferable, right? So
Absolutely.
talk about, to switch it up, talk about where your mind is with fitness in this new thing.
Well, so what I've seen in fitness is not everybody, but a lot of higher level coaches will kind of peak at a certain point. And what I've seen is, I don't know if what you've seen, but usually for coaches, like between like 30 to 50K a month. Like you can go past that. Certainly have
Yeah.
know people that go 100K months.
Mhm.
But and I think most things, there's kind of like, for you go to the next level, it gets like drastically more challenging, more stressful,
Yeah.
much more time intensive to kind of
Yeah.
get to that place. And so, I've kind of been in that range where, like, do I really want to go to that next level, and do I want to do what it takes to get to that next level, to get like in maybe a 1% coach that has that sort of level of a business. And then I see other people and other things where that sort of like range is much higher than that, because it's just a vehicle that allows a lot more leverage. And sort of, I don't know about for you, but I sort of have seen people that are in different industries that they're just in a different vehicle. They're not any more skilled than you or I, but they're just in something that can pay them
Yeah.
differently,
They go
right?
from like a Honda Civic to maybe a truck, to then the cyber truck,
Yep.
to a semi, to a train, to an airplane, and even though it's the same passengers
Yep.
and it may be even the same cargo, that vehicle that Nick is talking about is is in much better shape. It doesn't need as many oil changes. It
Yeah.
doesn't need a new replacement tire all the time. So yes, I see that all the time. I mean, that's literally why I dove into tech.
Mm-hmm.
Starting off, I'm gonna have a slow start, right? But just like anything else, you kind of have to build up certain skills. You have the transferable skills, but then once you're in it, there are other more
Mm-hmm.
technical skills that you're gonna have to learn.
Yep.
But I saw the guys, and girls in the fitness space that were making themselves, not the business, like them taking home in pocket, after paying everything, the ones that were making like 150, 200, were working their ass off, right? And we're talking social media posts once or twice a day, 5 days a week, sales calls, hiring, firing, and all that. And then I see account executives, sales
Yeah.
engineering positions, and a few other things, software development stuff, right? And the same people that were making the 150, 200,
Yeah.
250, all I heard was work-life balance is great. I don't work on the weekends. I get to spend more time with my family. I'm like, that vehicle has more space. And for me, that resonated a whole lot with me. Not that I wanted
Yep.
to completely give up fitness. Fuck, honestly, I miss it a lot of time. I go into the gym and I see these guys training. I'm like, man, that's so fun. That's so fun to sit there and train
Yeah.
somebody. But the vehicle that I need to be in is for other things. Like I have kids, I have a wife,
Yeah.
right? All these things. So yes, continue on the vehicle and how you're and what you're thinking of now.
Yeah, I mean, to talk to like fitness coach for a quick example too, like it's kind of like if you're training in person right now, which I never have trained in person before, but
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know what do you make training in person? Not a ton. You're there a lot, right? I think. And
4,500 to 5,500
yeah,
if you're working at a gym. If you're doing your own thing, probably a little bit more, but
yeah,
working at a gym, that's usually what you make.
yeah. You're kind of there on super early mornings, right? Late nights, that kind of thing. Transition to online coaching. That's a much better vehicle for fitness specifically, right? And there's a lot more skilled coaches than where I'm at. I have 0 certifications in fitness whatsoever, right? And it's not about, it's a vehicle, right? And our clients get good results. But then, so for me, I sort of found people in the insurance space were doing really, really well. and they were able to sort of,
What kind of insurance?
life and health insurance. So yeah, and able to sort of make a sale now, but get paid on that sale forever, every year. Beyond that was very attractive to me right now, sort of making a sale and then, maybe you can sell them one more time after that. But it's a constant, load the front end of the pipeline machine that you have to keep afloat. And then, it sort of can become pretty stressful if that is required to keep coaches rosters full, because it's not just you that you're taking care of, it's the salespeople and outreach and coaches and all those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
I think learning sales, from you you probably watch Jeremy Miner and some of these guys. Matt Ryder, are you familiar with some of those guys?
Matt Ryder, I've heard of him, but I haven't heard of the other guy.
Jeremy Miner. Yeah, I mean, they talk about fitness as kind of the battleground for learning sales. Like, if you can sell someone high ticket fitness coaching, like, you can sell anything. You're convincing them to go against their will and preferences and pay you thousands of dollars.
Yes, and the big thing about it is that social norms don't prioritize fitness whatsoever. So not only are you battling something where you have to make somebody do something hard, which is, because in reality, getting a bigger chest and having a lower body fat percentage doesn't necessarily really change anything in your life immediately.
Yeah.
I think that later on, when people are 50, 60 years old, they're going to start to see some of the repercussions of not taking care of their body.
Yeah.
But 20s, 30s, 40s, and sometimes even 50s, people don't really care. So it's like, if you're selling fitness to those people who aren't really seeing like huge problems in their life or not being the most in shape yet, then yeah, you can. And then on top of it, in the United States, 50% of the fucking adult population is fat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's getting worse. People don't want to do it. So selling it, yeah, you can sell almost anything anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that kind of ties back with what we talked about earlier with learning skills, right? And kind of go through the battleground in one area. And that's like, wow, I have this thing that I can apply over here, but you just can get paid a lot more doing it in certain cases. So yeah, that's kind of what I saw. And I had closers that work for me that were good closers. And they went into that space and they just made a lot more money because it's just a vehicle that could pay them more money. And it wasn't as hard to sell that either. So I and you're probably maybe not exactly the same, but in tech, right? It's like I have these things I acquired in your business and doing everything you've done. And hey, we were just talking about it. You're like, yeah, I can, do a lot of different stuff there. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say this all the time when people ask me like, how is your position with the new company? And I say a lot of this stuff is very similar to what I was doing already. I'm working solo dolo. I'm doing outreach. I'm trying to build my audience. I'm posting slowly, right? And I have to have patience, So one of those things, it's like other companies that hire for account executives, they immediately put you on the phones and you're cold calling and all those things. I've been grateful enough to be a part of a company that sees kind of like how the growth can be on a patient level, which is really nice. But no, so for you, what you were saying is like the vehicle of fitness is more so you have to front load everything. You're constantly working, and if things fall off later, like a client drops off, you have to immediately start front loading a lot, right? Once again, to make sure that coaches get paid, and you have to take care of those people. Versus with insurance, you do a deal, and you have this residual to a degree, right, coming in over time, as long as this person is staying on the platform that you're selling, right?
Yep.
And that is something that a lot of people should look at. If you have a lot of passion for one career that you're in right now, maybe what changes your mind to transfer over to something else is like, how much do you get rewarded later with your current career path, or how much can you get rewarded later with maybe something else that you're looking at? When I was at LA Fitness, it was very much no different than kind of like running your own fitness business, where a lot of it was front loaded, right? You had to constantly sell deals all the time, and it was always about what you're going to do for me today. I don't care about what you did tomorrow. So that is a huge thing. That is a step, which brings me to kind of like the couple of questions that I have here is like, what are some practical steps that listeners can take to develop these transferable skills? And I think the first step is getting into the mindset of wanting something different, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't want anything different, then there's no need to have there's no need to have the term transferable skills in your mindset, right? Like if you're happy where you're at and you're very comfortable, then fine. Everybody lives their life, however way they want to live it.
Yep.
But if you are in a mindset of like, there is something more that I would like to learn, the first thing is like, how can you look at it in the macro lens, like Nick says, right? And what is beneficial to you now and what can be beneficial to you later, and how can you build that mindset towards that? Then from there, looking at these like micro events that can help you gain some of that patience. So for you, what is a practical step? We mentioned mentorship is a practical step. I feel like having someone, my rule is
Yeah.
always like, try to find someone, and I don't know how concrete you can really measure this, but like find someone who does like 10 times better than you to a degree, right? In
Yep.
whatever life you're living in. So for example, if you're like a newlywed, find a guy that's been married for 10 years that has a good relationship and go get advice from him,
Yeah, exactly.
but what are some practical steps that you think people can take to start developing transferable skills and whatnot?
What's always helped me is like finding out what kind of lifestyle you want to be able to live. Because when in school, we're kind of, this is how school works. You get asked to pick a thing that you love to do, and then and then go do that thing. The problem with that is that the lifestyle that what that produces is kind of already picked for you. Because if I'm like, oh, I want to be a nurse, I love nursing, well, that's only going to pay me about 70 grand a year, and that's going to determine what kind of cars I drive and where I live and what I'm able to do with my family and all those things. So one of my mentors very early on taught me to like pick the lifestyle I want first. This is how many hours I want to be able to work. This is how much I'm able to travel and give away and all of those things, and then walk that back and find something that could actually get to you to that place. And then from there, once you have that sort of location determined, you can find something that can actually produce that, and then find the best people that do that thing, and convince them to coach you or get in their circle, pay to get around them, and whatever skills that they've acquired that they say are important that got them to where they're at, that's what you should focus on. It doesn't have to be like, I have to figure this out. What are these magical things? You just copy what it is. Like success leaves clues, so you just, I've found those people and I've done what they say. That's what I did
Yeah.
in fitness, right? We did the same
Yeah.
coaching program. We followed the same stuff to kind of get to where we're at into that. So
Right.
that's what I would say. Find the person and copy the skills that they say are important.
As cheesy as it is, developing like a vision board
Yeah.
is huge, right? I haven't made like a collage,
I got it
vision
right here,
board.
buddy, behind me. Yeah. It's right above my head. Yeah.
So I have one, but I haven't made one in a while.
Yeah.
But I do envision it in my head all the time. Right? Like I live in a nice home, but I want a bigger home, to be honest with you. And I sit here and I'm like, okay, what vehicle do I want to be in, or what vehicle can I get into that will help me live this certain lifestyle in however X amount of time, right? Whether it's 6 months or 12 months. And I feel like a lot of time people have certain positions or certain jobs, and then they go almost lie to themselves that they're going to be able to get to a certain level by
Agreed.
working whatever, right? So then from there we have this kind of like vision board. Let's say people don't have like that traditional background of like being open-minded, or not necessarily being open-minded, but for example, and I think that you have similar things here as well, where I grew up in a way where there was always people around me talking to me about just things. So my background has always been very social. There are a lot of people in life that don't have very social backgrounds. They have maybe what's the term, that almost like an isolated kind of life, right? Some people literally, when they were kids, they would get up, go to school, come home, and their parents didn't let them do anything.
Yeah.
And then when they're adults, they kind of fell into the same habits, right? Where they go to work, they don't really engage with anybody at work, and then they come home, they don't play any video games, they just kind of watch TV. But let's say something clicks with that person, and I've seen certain situations with a lot of people where they look at things and like, man, this person has a little bit more, but I just feel very introverted is always the first word that I hear. It's like I'm very introverted, but
Yeah.
introverted doesn't necessarily immediately mean that you can't have success in other areas. So if you
Yeah.
have that like non-traditional background of like being social, what do you think you can do in order to start becoming a little bit more social or switch up your background for the future in the sense?
I mean, that's how I am. I'm very introverted. Like when I was in high school, like I didn't even want to order pizza on the phone. Like I didn't even want to call to order the Domino's. You know what I'm saying? That's what it was.
Oh
Like
no.
that's the God's honest truth. So like when I was talking about that business, that first business I started, it was very challenging. Like if you know network marketing, that's all you do is talking to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like the only thing. So
Yeah.
I just had to force myself to get uncomfortable to be, to do that. And so it doesn't mean that it has to be like you start a network marketing business to do it, but I think you just got to kind of force yourself to get uncomfortable a little bit, whether that's, whatever it is. I'm saying hi to this amount of people per day, or you get a retail job where you have to talk to customers or find a
Saying hi
sales
to people is a
position.
very like
Yeah.
like low barrier thing. Like how can you it's almost like if you sit at home and you're listening to a podcast like this or reading up something, if you're the person who's like maybe sitting at home watching TV and you're like, man, I'm not very social and I don't
Yep.
really engage with a whole lot of people. I play video games, maybe buy a video game where you're forced to talk to people and like don't like if you're playing Call of Duty, don't just turn off your mic, like play with somebody and just
Yeah.
start talking to strangers, right?
Yeah.
Those are little things that you can really push. That's so funny, man, that you wouldn't even order a pizza. When I
Dude,
was a
that's how it
teenager,
was, man. Yep.
I was the complete opposite. It
Yeah.
was the complete opposite. I would get on the phone with like customer service. If things went wrong, I was like 14, 15 years
Yeah.
old, trying to figure out what went wrong with the TV. Did you have an Xbox 360 back when you were younger?
Ah, yeah. Tell the
Okay.
red ring of death,
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I
Yeah.
saw something on X on Twitter the other day where Xbox had refunded a lot of people or switched it out. When I was 14 years old, I got the red ring of death, and I called Xbox customer support. 14 years old, called Xbox customer support, and I said I got the red ring of death. I need some help. What can I do? They literally shipped me a box at 14 to my dad's house. I put it in the box and I walked my ass to the post office and gave it to him. And then they sent me a new Xbox. My dad had no idea. He still
Let's
has no
go.
idea to this day.
That's so funny. You have to
That's
call him and tell him.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, but
No, that's
cool, cool,
hilarious.
cool. So,
One of
so
my
let's say,
last thing on that, like one of my mentors even says, like he's like, hey, extroverts, they say a lot, but not everybody listens because they're just like talking to talk. And he's like, hey, introverts, when they talk, people listen because they're like, hey, he doesn't talk much. He must have something to say, important to
I
say.
have I have definitely gone from very extroverted to I would say I'm in the middle now.
Yeah.
I'm very in the middle now, and I think what has helped me a whole lot is uh, there's so much noise. There's so much noise going on, and the patience and the way you respond to people.
Yeah.
I have a 7 second rule, right? When I teach sales, I have a rule where I'm like, wait like 7 seconds to respond to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is on the call with you, just shut the fuck up and
Mm-hmm.
just listen for a second. So that way, one, you can fully think about what your response is to what was just said. And
Mm-hmm.
two, so that this other person doesn't feel like you're already trying to
Yeah.
say something before they finish their thought. And then it
Exactly.
just makes you look like an asshole. And then the worst thing you can ever get is that the compliment of like, you were such a good salesperson.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
that's the worst. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
just really like patient, then it's huge. And honestly, a lot of like the big salespeople that I know specifically are introverts.
Yeah. Yeah. They're great
Truthfully,
listeners. They're
they're
great listeners.
great
Yep.
listeners. They're chilling, right? So for those of you listening, and you're like, man, I just don't have that like personality like you
Yeah.
do, or whoever. No, 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 no. It's got nothing to do with that. Active listening is huge. Sometimes those big personalities bite themselves in the butt. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, to kind of transfer over to end this real quick, you and I are both on social media, and we're always posting things like that. I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn over the past year and a half. Did the social media platform help you in any kind of way, like either your LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, help you in any kind of way to develop certain like relationships that are helping you transition into a new career path in any way?
Yeah, I mean that's how I got into fitness, specifically how I got out of nursing. That's how I found the people that I found sort of in my next moves with both insurance and getting into some commercial real estate oriented things. Having a mentor in both of those areas are both people that I found on social media and seeing
Mm,
their lifestyles and seeing what they've been able to do is kind of how I got
yeah,
connected with those people. So yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. Not that you got to sit on there all day long and waste your time, but there's certainly value in creating a personal brand, I guess, and putting content out so you're able to kind of identify relationships. Right, that's how we met. Right, so I
yeah,
met Brent. All my
yep,
coaches have
yep,
been social media.
yeah, yeah. I think for me, the lesson that I can give for those of you who are looking for positions and things like that, for LinkedIn specifically, having a good profile picture, being very approachable is huge, right? Especially if you're looking to connect with other people. I've gotten some messages from individuals, and sometimes I've gotten messages that are questions that are good questions of like, hey, how should I develop these skills, or what do you think about me jumping into this? And their profile um, has either like a black photo,
Yeah,
right? Like literally just a black circle, or they have like a picture of their animals or a picture of their car or whatever it is,
yeah,
right? And for me, to be honest with you, is like I don't like responding to those people, because if you're asking me a legitimate like work question or like a career question or some kind of like sales question or anything, and your profile looks like this, personally, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think
hmm,
it's worth my time to respond, because you're not in a place where you want to showcase your best self.
yep,
And while I want to help out a bunch of people, there's a certain amount of time and bandwidth that I can give, right? So if you want to help me out and you want to ask a question, come with like your face some kind of way, right? And I think that
yep,
employers will also be the same way. I've seen some people through the time that I spent at Careerist for my sales engineering platform. There were some people that were brand new, and there were some people that had gotten positions that were coming in from like a construction space and got into tech, but their profiles looked really good. They looked like they wanted to get a new job. And then some other people were like, "Oh, I'm frustrated, this and that."
hmm,
They got like some really blurry photo. They don't post anything. They don't repost anything on their LinkedIn, or they don't share
yep,
certain things that are good. And either on their Facebook or Instagram, they're sharing too many memes. They're constantly talking down on people, right? All these things. Not that you can't share memes. If you guys follow me on anything, I like to share funny stuff on my story all the time.
yep,
But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't share like the things that make me valuable to a degree. So with your resume, with your LinkedIn, with your other social media presence, make sure that you look like the person that wants to be hired or that wants to connect with others, not necessarily for a job, but just like,
hmm,
building that network. Like we talked about, if you want to go from the person who's very isolated to a person who's not so isolated and want to start talking to people, no one's going to respond to you if you just got funny stuff on
yeah,
your social media page, right? So
yep.
cool, cool, cool.
Agreed.
I think this was a good episode. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else that you want to kind of bonus tip, and we can end it there?
I don't know if I have any bonus tips, but I definitely connect with the questions about being introverted, and don't let that stop you from getting outside of your comfort zone to go after the things that you are wanting to go after. If that's skills you want to acquire, or whatever it is, that is exactly how I was. Um, but the goals I had were worth me getting uncomfortable for. So, just
Yep.
take the steps, don't let it stop you. And that's kind of my final note, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Matty Fit on Instagram, right?
Yeah, it's just Nick Maddie now we're official.
Nick
So
Matty. Oh man, I need to take the fit off of it. It says Benegas Fit. I'm like, I don't know what that
you're
is,
good,
man. So
bro.
I gotta remove it on there. But find them on Instagram. Same thing with me. LinkedIn is where I mostly post is So if you are on LinkedIn and you're listening to this and you want to talk about anything, I'm more than happy to chat. But Pod-A-Holics, episode 3, transferable skills. I am always happy to bring you guys more episodes about transferable skills if you guys want. But nonetheless, thank you for coming today and listening to the episode. Nick, I appreciate you showing up and being a guest.
You too, brother. Appreciate you having me on.